would say World of Warcraft encourages people to form relationships because a lot of things you have to work together on.
The big thing about it for me is community. You know, the people that you meet.
You're working together towards a goal.
You know, I've got people that I've met online that I've not physically met that are closer than my brother in some aspects.
The foundation of Blizzard is basically engineering students from UCLA. In '91, when we first started the company, it was also the year that Nintendo was about to release their Super Nintendo console in the United States. So we did a racing game with Interplay called RPM Racing, and that was our first game. And then in '94, we sold the company to Davidson and Associates. And that's when we changed our name to Blizzard Entertainment and started working on Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. Followed that up with Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. Then we did Diablo. Then we released StarCraft, Diablo 2, Warcraft 3, World of Warcraft. When we first did Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, there was this idea in the company that, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you were a character and you could go around and actually exist as a character in a living, breathing world.
At the time that we started on World of Warcraft, we already had almost all of our games were very multiplayer focused.
While we were working on StarCraft, though, Origin came out with Ultima Online, and we looked at that and said, the tech is here, do we want to make this game? And we all looked around and said, yeah, absolutely. And immediately started working on World of Warcraft.
We also already were very used to dealing with players that want to be competitive, dealing with players that want to be cooperative, and with World of Warcraft, again, we kind of had both.
The first stage was to figure out what type of game we wanted to make.
How do we create kind of different roles for players?
We started out building the engine and also designing out what the core principles and core priorities for the game would be.
What was the art style and what was the virtual world going to be like?
We were definitely sort of hearkening back to some of our original loves. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit.
We already had so many lands, so many characters, so many monsters and things that they were able to tap into.
But we hadn't really done anything that was an immersive 3D game.
How do you immerse the player in that backstory?
We upped the fidelity of the characters. They had more polygons. They had more elaborate animations. Their faces were a little bit more expressive.
What you're really doing is trying to set up these little story chunks that can be chained together, but also be able to be played apart.
We accomplished that through the questing system to teach people about the world, hopefully make it more immersive, give them a reason for why they're doing the things that they're being asked to do.
But you should still try to write so the player uncovers more and more stories that go along.
We started development in 1999 and didn't ship until 2004.
When War came out, all my group of friends, we all gathered in an apartment in Paris for 10 days. And we bought enough food to never have to go out of the apartment for 10 days.
Yeah, I would spend all of my free time playing.
Only one person left in the 10 days because we all grouped together. I think the guy just cracked and he couldn't take it anymore.
Do I regret it? Not really. Because it's fun and I still play. But it did offer so much more of an experience than just playing a video game.
When you go from working day to day and creating all these assets that wind up in these games, be it the music or voices or sound effects, soundtracks for these cinematics, eventually something like BlizzCon happens. And that's the point where we get to meet our fans and we find out that yes, they are listening. It all provides this greater meaning and it makes it awfully fun.
And we go out and we get to actually interact with our community and see the passion that players have.
Hello everyone, and welcome to BlizzCon 2013!
I remember there was one letter I got from this person who felt very uncomfortable being in social situations, to the point that they really didn't go outside of their house very often. When they did, it was very uncomfortable. They didn't feel comfortable communicating with others via the phone or in person. And they started playing World of Warcraft. And at first, didn't talk to a single person in the game, and then eventually got invited to a guild, but didn't feel comfortable talking to other people in the guild, just kind of listened. And then as time went on, they made friends in their guild to the point that their guild basically helped them get out of their shell and form these, relationships that they hadn't really experienced before in real life. It's pretty amazing.
It's fun to talk about what you've done, the raids you've done.
The age range thing doesn't really matter.
It's fun.
And we're both married, so that keeps us together kind of things. So if we're ever physically apart, we can always play together.
The game gave us a really nice medium just to sort of get to know each other on a really just easygoing and familiar level, so it's cool.
Until we were able to meet and decided we liked each other enough to move in.
A guild is just a group of friends that you can consistently, log in, say hi, and talk to on a regular basis, just like your actual friend group.
At the last Blizzcon that we were here, I met 14 people from my guild that I'd never met before.
I had met about 6 or 7 people that I just, I'd been talking to for a couple of years online, and it was a scary but cool experience at the same time.
The top 20 world guilds, it's a very competitive scene as far as esports goes, so we try to give ourselves as much of an advantage as we can fairly.
We raid 5 days a week for 5 hours a night.
Other guilds will raid more than that during progression. Blood Legion and Midwinter will do 7+ hours a night for 7 days a week. They're the number 1 and number 2 ranked guilds in the US, so they tend to raid a lot more as a result of that.
The player base between the top even 7 guilds, 25 man in the world, we're all pretty good players. We can all make it. It's just they have that higher time commitment. The analogy I always like to use is that most of the games that we released have more of that feature film sort of feel, where they have this big impact and people will play them or watch them for some period of time, but then you kind of move on to the next thing. World of Warcraft is a lot more like a TV series, where it's almost like every season of the TV series, you have to be loyal to the characters and the plot lines, but you also have to bring in something fresh. Sometimes you have to almost reinvent yourself.
There's a point at which once we release the game, it almost becomes the community's game, and we become the curators of the experience. Responsible for preserving the experience, for refereeing it, making sure that rules that we set up are actually promoting a good, fair, entertaining experience. When somehow the rules aren't serving fun gameplay, then we move in and try to fix them and re-release those rules back to the community. But ultimately, we're here to serve the community at that point. It's almost not ours.